Rich talked about the 4 types of coordinates, 3 of which are lat long. This is a summary slide of the different types of lat long coordinates. The degrees, minutes, and seconds, I have to, in my search and rescue career, I can't ever remember a time where we got coordinates in degrees, minutes, seconds. Right. You need to know what it is. You may need to read it from a map, but I don't think that you'll ever get this as part of search and rescue. However, what you will get a lot is the bottom 2 formats. Degrees and decimal minutes, you'll get that from the helicopter. At the Red Rock State Park search last week, where we unfortunately found a subject deceased, Ranger helicopter was the first one to locate where the probable subject was, and Ranger helicopter hovered over the person for probably about 30 seconds in order to get the coordinates to give to the land-based searchers. When those coordinates came from Ranger helicopter, they were degrees and decimal minutes. And the land searchers had time to switch their GPS to degrees, decimal minutes, so that when they got the helicopter coordinates, they could see where they're at in relation to that person's location.
And Tim, just a quick comment.
Go ahead.
Tim, I unmuted myself so I could butt in anytime. I was amazed, just as an FYI, with that search at how close the helicopter coordinates were to the actual location of the subject. They were within 10 meters. And that just amazed me from the air that they could be that accurate. Yeah. Especially with it the way it was. So
I was watching Ranger, and they was close enough to see circling where the subject was. Yep. And they said, the first time they said, we're trying to get coordinates, and then there was a wind there, and the wind took them away from the subject, and so they actually circled around again and hovered low over the subject to increase the accuracy of their coordinates. And as Rich taught us last week, the way to tell the type of coordinate is look where the decimal point is. In this case, the decimal point is in the minutes, so it's decimal minutes. The next lat long coordinate that you will get frequently is decimal degrees. The decimal is in the degrees part. And when you get numbers, it's kind of hard to tell where is it in minutes or degrees. You have to actually where the decimal is in relation to all the other numbers. Decimal degrees you will get from cell phone, or you will just get from the deputies. Sometimes I think the deputies just send decimal degrees, and they're not cell phone coordinates. So again, just repeating, you'll get degrees, decimal minutes from helicopter. You'll get decimal degrees from deputies, either as location of base tomorrow or ICT tomorrow, or as cell phone coordinates. So now what we're going to do is go to slide 18, right here. So now we know the 3 types of lat long, 1 type of UTM coordinate. How do we actually use that in our GPS? This is how I have my GPS set up. There's 2 main screens, and Peg or I or others can actually show you how to set up your GPS if you want to do this. It's under setup, under I believe main menu. Everything that I need in search and rescue is on these 2 screens on the left. Let's say 90–95% of everything I need. And I set it up that way because there's 27, 30 programs on a GPS, and I only want the ones that I really need close to me. I have mine set up so that I go right, left, and I see these 2 screens. You can see this bar right here. You flip that up like this, and you get to see this screen, and here's all the other programs that are useful, but you rarely use in search and rescue. Peg Kern has hers set up differently. I think, Peg, maybe you have 1 screen, and then you have everything on the top of your bottom screen here.
Yes, and I can just quickly explain my theory. I like having just 2 options. I put the 9 most useful items on the main screen,
right
and
here.
then I swipe up or down, and then I get the others, but I put at the top of the bottom, if you will, the right-hand screen that Tim has there, I rearrange those so that the items that I use next most often are up at the very top there. The reason I do that is there are some other ones that I want to remember that are useful, like proximity alarms or something like that we may use eventually.
Yep.
And I don't want to have to think about, well, is that on the right side or is that on the bottom side? So I can, but it is critical in that situation to rearrange the items on the bottom menu, what's called the drawer, to get them in the right order.
So either one of us can help you set up your GPS so it works best for you. And there's no right way, it's whatever the way is best for you.
And I will also say that if you go through the GPS setup guide that was sent out, it's a 10-pager that I believe you all have, and it's also on our Google Docs. That does walk you through how to do that also. So I would recommend getting really familiar with that document, and then as you have questions about it, certainly feel free to contact me or Tim, and we can help you out with it.
And
Peg, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but as someone new to this, I will say that document was extremely helpful for setup for me. So thank you.
Excellent. Yep. I still have on my to-do list to update it for the few discrepancies between the Oregon 600 and 700 series. The most important one being when you first get the 700, understanding the activity versus classic mode. So once we get, so I'll be updating the document hopefully soon to put that type of information in.
And Jennifer, you don't need to apologize for jumping in. I want anyone to jump in at any time with questions. That's the purpose of this training. So please jump in. And who just tried to jump in? Did someone have a question? Okay. Now, position format is what you'll use a lot. So on my screen, you know, I put position format right here. Position format is in the setup menu. Position format is exactly what it says it is. That's how you change the format of your position coordinates. So when you need, you know, you're out on a hike, you're on a search, and you're using UTM. By the way, we use UTM in search and rescue because it is the most accurate coordinate system for land-based hiking searchers, because it measures you by meters, and meters are easy to understand. Every single number on there is a different type of meter. I'll show you that later. But you know you're going to get helicopter coordinates like last week. I go in and change position format. This is what you will see. So you can tap on setup and go down the long menu to position format, or you put position format on your menu page, tap on that, you come to here, tap on that, and you get three options. Position format is where we would change from UTM to a type of lat long. Map datum we will cover. Map datum is also important, of which we have 3 types. I'll cover that next. So you tap on position format, and you will find these. There's a long menu. You know, there may be 40, 50 coordinate types in here, of which we are only interested in 4. Unfortunately, the top 3 we're interested in right here, they're at the very top. And because they're alphabetical, UTM is at the very bottom. So very often you'd be scrolling up or scrolling down, scrolling up or scrolling down. We haven't found a way yet to move UTM like right underneath lat long, for example. So here's your 3 lat long formats: decimal degrees, decimal minutes, degrees, minutes, seconds. These are the top 2 you'll be switching back and forth between this one, this, decimal degrees, decimal minutes, and UTM. Okay. This is the exact same point on the Earth. This happens to be Andante Trailhead. In this case, we had set position format to decimal degrees. Here, decimal degrees. In this case, we'd set position format to UTM, all of which was done through the position format program in your GPS. I do want to talk a little bit more about UTM coordinates, because it's important to understand what the easting is, the northing is, and the proper format. These are actual coordinates of a subject location in Dead Horse State Park from a couple of years ago. 12, that's the east-west zone. S is the latitude band number. Early in my career, I used to say 12 south, and I was quickly reminded that the S is not south. It's actually the latitude band number. This is the easting part of the coordinate, and this is the northing part. This is the, so this 408.033 is the easting. That corresponds to the number of meters a location is from the central meridian. Now, you don't need to know that. The people that would like to understand it better, it's useful for you to know that, but you don't need to know that to function as a searcher. But in the middle of the zone, there's one line that they call it 500,000 meters, and then anything that is like this 408,000 meters, that's more toward the west side. If this was 608,000 meters, it'd be more on the east side. You see the easting on the top of a map. So think about east-west on a map. East-west on a map goes, sideways, right to left, left to right. And so easting is at the top of the map. And this is when you'll have to get coordinates from a map. For example, you know your location on a map and you need to read them because your GPS batteries are dead. You can get your easting off a map as you can get your northing off a map. This is 12 south, 408,000 meters. This is 12 south, 408,100 meters. The northing, the northing is the distance in meters from the equator. Now, north and south go up and down on a map. And so your northing goes also up and down on a map. So it'd be on the left and right side. This northing is 3,848,300 meters from the equator. This is 3,848,200 meters from the equator. So between here and here is 100 meters. Between here and here is 100 meters. So that's a 100-meter square right there. Let's see, what else do I need to say? When you repeat—
Just one quick comment, you will sometimes, depending on the scale of the map, it may be 200 meters, it may be 500 meters between those numbers. So it's something to be aware of. Just by looking at those last 3 digits, that helps you understand what the scale is on this particular map.
Yeah, okay. Knowing the order of those coordinates is important. This is, I figured to tell about one of my first mistakes that actually Peg Kern helped correct. This is a Dead Horse State Park, one of my first searches. I got there, deputies, oh, looks like somebody maybe wants in.
It might be Daryl.
It's actually Rick joining.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Rick. So I got to the search, the deputy was there. It was not a Forest Service deputy. The deputy had the coordinates written on his, the hood of his, on a pad that was on the hood of his vehicle. And he said, the coordinates are over there. I went over there, and this is what I saw. Coordinates for Dead Horse State Park. I started putting those into my GPS, and it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't take them. and I kept saying, what am I doing wrong? And then I went over to Peg Kern for help. And she said, "Oh, they're in the wrong order." And what we learn is that usually in here the 0 is actually the easting. This is the first coordinate. So this is easting and northing. And the deputy, not familiar with these, had switched them, and I was unfamiliar with the coordinates. I didn't know that. So that was my first lesson, that this is actually at 12 south, 04, 08, 053. 38, 48200. And that's how you read the coordinates, 2, 2, 3 in that cadence. So errors will occur when trying to input this last coordinate as the first in your GPS. So it's important to know the proper order of the UTM coordinates.
And just a quick comment, you will often not see the leading 0 on the easting. It may very well be written 408053.
In fact, it almost always is in my
Almost always, yeah.
0 is gone.
Yep.
And it would be, and then the way you read them, 2, 2, 3 doesn't make sense then. Usually you read 408053.
So you should actually always, when you're stating them, you should always insert the leading 0 when you read them to make that more consistent. 04, even if you don't see it. Just be aware that there is a 0 there.
Okay. Now, another confusing part of coordinates in your GPS is the datum. The datum is like the underlying base in which the coordinates are developed. We work with 3 types of map datums. The NAD27 CONUS is how it is described on your GPS. CONUS is continental United States, and it, as the name implies, it's a datum created in 1927. You will see this pretty much in any coordinates from the Forest Service, because the Forest Service relies on USGS topography maps or Army Corps maps or older, almost every Forest Service coordinate that, for example, I get as a member of Friends of the Forest archaeological team is an NAD27, because it's older coordinates from Forest Service maps. In 1983, NAD27 was replaced with something else called NAD83, made in 1983. It's the current map datum of North America. It provides lat, long, and some height information. The one used for GPS is called WGS84. It is the standard for VSAR operational mode. Now, in practical terms, the NAD83 and WGS84 are almost the same. And there can be maybe 5 or 10 meters differences between them. The difference between them is not significant. However, if you have NAD27 coordinates and they should be this, or you have WGS84 and they should be this, you can be 200 meters off in general. You can find the datum by looking at the map. This is the map that we give all of our SAR members. And the way you look at the datum is it's usually under the scale. So this scale over here, this map is in NAD83. So you can read UTM coordinates off this map, and they're accurate enough that we can input them into the GPS or report them to the deputy as to our location. However, I was surprised when I looked at my National Geographic maps. National Geographic, high quality map maker. I rely on them. They're excellent maps. And lo and behold, I looked on the back, and the Nat Geo maps are NAD27. So, they're great maps. They're perfect. They show you the topography, but you need to realize that any coordinate that you would get out of a Nat Geo map would be NAD27. When you put that into your GPS, you have to make sure you have the right datum. If you report this coordinate, or for some reason you get a coordinate from a map like this, you need to realize it's NAD27. Entering coordinate datum properly can make a big difference. I just did an exercise on coordinates that we had from a search off Baldwin Trailhead. This is where the Baldwin Trail subjects were found. And I did an experiment. Okay, let's take the same coordinates, but I tell my GPS it's an NAD27 datum. And it turns out the subjects turned out to be in the river. So If I would have entered the subject's coordinates and I had the wrong datum, I would have gotten my feet wet and I would have been far away from the subjects. And then I assumed that they were NAD27 coordinates and I entered in a WGS. I actually converted them to NAD27, but I left my GPS WGS84. I was this far off in the other direction. I actually measured now how far off you would be, and it's about 200 meters. And Peg and I have seen this when we are, for example, looking for archaeology sites. All the archaeology site coordinates that we have come from Forest Service. And if we come to a location and we cannot find any hint of the archaeological site, we realize it's probably an NAD27 that wasn't converted properly. And we've done it before, we've actually then used NAD27 datum and migrated to the new location and found the site. That's how we actually learn the big difference between these datums. Changing datums on a GPS. So you recall how we went into position format, and previously this is how we changed the coordinate format from decimal degrees or decimal minutes or UTM. That's what we would do it here. This is where we change the datum. So you click on that and you have a long listing of datums. The three that we are interested in are NAD27 continental United States. And you have to be careful. There's also NAD27 Cuba, NAD27 Greenland, Mexico, and I think some others up here. NAD27 CONUS is the one we would choose if the coordinates are set in NAD27. Here's NAD83, and then further down, because it's alphabetical, in the W's, here's WS84. This is the datum that your GPS should be set on like 98% of the time, unless you know it's an NAD27 coordinate, which we get a lot in our Forest Service work. I don't think I've ever gotten an NAD27 coordinate in a search. Have you, Peg?
Yeah, the only time it came into play was once, and that might have been out at Baldwin again, when Al Cornell was the base, and he was using a topo map, a huge paper map, getting the coordinates off that map, and we had to watch out because they were NAD27. Okay.
So it's a rarity, but you need to know the concepts. You need to understand this enough to ask, you know, if they're getting from a map, you ask, what's the datum of the map?
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's rare that we get them from a map, so that's why is so unusual. But good old Al likes his paper maps.
and they're totally appropriate.
Oh, they're wonderful.
And they're very accurate. You just need to know when you convert from the map to your GPS, what are the parameters? And there's two parameters. What's the coordinate format and what's the datum?
And the other time we do use maps, although it's becoming less frequent, is when we're on a large scale grid search, and we get to base, especially out of county even, and they have a big map put on a big table with all the segments laid out, and we actually have to take the coordinates off of that map. We should always verify what is the datum on that map. Mm-hmm. Normally it's WGS 84 or NAD 83, but it should be always verify it.
Yeah. Okay. A feature of your GPS that you will use a lot is marking a waypoint or entering a waypoint from coordinates provided. For example, before you leave on a search, you mark a waypoint from where you begin from, which is usually base or ICT. You want to mark a waypoint for when you leave the trail. So there's many social trails. There's many times you have to go off trail because the subject's cell phone coordinates are 100 meters off trail XYZ. You want to mark where you leave the trail. You need to mark a waypoint where clues are found. You're on an evidence search. You find bullet shells, you find cell phones. you need to mark a waypoint where those clues are found and then be able to call that waypoint in. When you find a subject, you take a waypoint of where you found the subject. If you're leaving base and you're given a subject's coordinates, you enter a waypoint of where that subject's coordinates are. So you'll use this a lot. And our exercise next week, the GPS field training, uses this a lot because, well, it's one of the most common features that you will use. You'll probably use this more than position format. Before marking your waypoint, you need to assess your satellite page for position accuracy. Now, do we do this every time? I would say no, but we do this every time when we're starting. When you turn on your GPS, it can take 10 seconds to boot up and be proper, or it could take 5 minutes, sometimes even longer. It depends on, there's been sometimes in the GPS, there's, I think I remember I was with Dan once and we just couldn't get our GPSs to lock on any closer than like 500, 700 meters. And that day there happened to be like a solar flare and the GPSs weren't working quite right. Now that's very rare, but it happened to both of us on the same time. We only knew that by clicking on satellite, touch this, and you go to this page. And this tells you, it's a neat diagram of all the satellites that your GPS is seeing. That's just kind of a neat thing to see. What's really important is what it says up here. When you tap on satellite, this is the screen you see. This is the key data. So this GPS accuracy, we are accurate within 30 feet. And this is the coordinate where your GPS is. So if you actually, with satellite, you can get your current coordinates and you can also get your accuracy. Where this is important and where it can screw you up is you turn on your GPS, Mike VTech or Adam or Matt gives you the coordinates of the subject. You put them in, you mark base so you know how to get back to base, put in your coordinates, and then you head off. Unfortunately, you may find later that your GPS wasn't quite hooked up to all the satellites and you only had 100-meter accuracy, for example. When you don't have adequate accuracy, your GPS coordinates won't be correct. So at the beginning, check satellite, check your accuracy. I think if it's 10 meters, it can be either feet or meters. And Peg, this is in feet. Mine is in meters. That would depend on what your units have that you've been set up in the GPS.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the other comment just to make about the accuracy and what happens in your scenario of you got to base and you set the waypoint to go to the subject and it seems to be screwed up basically. When you turn on your unit, it remembers the last location that you were at. So if you had it turned on at home last, and then you turned it off at home, you drove to the base location, and you turned your GPS on and immediately marked a waypoint, it's going to mark you back at home. It's also going to cause a false line to be drawn from home to where the subject is when you say go to, because it thinks you were back at home. A lot of people say, why do I have this line on here? And it's probably because you had not waited for the satellites to acquire before you started marking or doing anything. My recommendation, and I try and tell everyone this every time, if I remember, as soon as you get to a starting location, a base location, while you're getting ready, turn on your GPS and let it just sit there while you are preparing for your task, your mission. And then by the time you're ready to do something with it, it should be okay, but you verify it through the screen.
Okay, thank you, Peg. So once you've verified that you've got suitable accuracy, and suitable accuracy is, 10 meters is really good.
Yeah, you'll never see it less than 9 feet. I don't think it never goes. I don't think it ever goes down to like 6 feet or anything like that. I think 9 is the lowest.
You see a 3 there, that means you're accurate. So 9 feet either side. So it's accurate within an 18-foot circle, basically, which is exceedingly accurate. Now, to mark a waypoint, you use this program called, Mark Waypoint. You tap Mark Waypoint, this screen comes up. And there's 2 important components of this screen. It assigns a random number. Whatever the last number of waypoint you marked was 3, well, this assigns us 4. You need to change that 4 to whatever you want it to be. In this case, subject location, or it could be clue, or it could be cell phone, or it could be bullet casings, or cigarette butt. The next thing you will change, I'll show you on the next screen, is the coordinates that you want to enter. First, to change the name, you tap this, you come to this screen, and you see, that green box there means when you start typing down here, whatever you type will go into that green box. I think in most cases, Peg, this will overwrite. Like if I want to say subject SUB, it'll overwrite that 004.
Yes, and that's by far the easiest thing to do is just start typing. Don't worry about where it is, and it will overwrite it.
So you type, SUB, type in subject, and then, LOC for subject location. You got that? You got it in. You got the name that you want. You type this check mark. The check mark then actually saves that name. Oh, one thing here is, and we can show you this at the training next Wednesday, but using the hotkey lower side button on your GPS, if you tap that, you'll come up with the same screen. So like most electronic instruments, there's multiple ways to get to the same thing, and you tend to use the one that you're most comfortable with. You can go to the screen and tap this, or you can go to the hotkey lower side button on your GPS. Tap it, and this screen will come up.
And for that reason, because the hot button on the bottom button is so handy, I don't even waste space on my main menu for Mark Waypoint because I never use the menu option. I always use the button. And that gives me one more position for a different program to be on the main screen.
Yeah, so on Peg's GPS, she doesn't have this.
It's down in the bottom if I need it.
It would be down in the bottom. If you lift this up, this Mark Waypoint would be down here on Peg's.
But I never use it.
Okay.
Tim, quick question, please.
Yep.
On the bar where it says 004, you said it's green. My color is orange. Does that matter?
No, it doesn't matter. I've actually changed some to orange, or a color that the person can see. I've forgotten where I changed that, but it can be changed.
It's in the display settings. You can choose the colors for some of the various icons that are on the screen. So,
I think I remember with your...
But it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. It's just your choice. You can choose pink if you want. You can choose whatever colors you'd like to see.
I think I remember being with you, Stephen, and we were looking at that, and you could not see where your cursor was. And when you can't see where your cursor was, it's just really hard to type in the right thing. And I think, Stephen, I remember changing yours to orange. So that
I think we did because the sun was really bright and I just couldn't pick it up.
That's right.
It's in your setup guide. The instructions on how to change the color are in the guide under the settings, and it's under the it's as you go through the settings, you'll find the color. Yeah, it's under the what's called appearance. So there's a daytime color and a nighttime color preference under appearance.
And if anybody's having trouble seeing this, follow the guide that Peg put together to change the color, or for the first time, we can help you, next Wednesday, okay? And Jennifer, if you're, I know you can't be there next Wednesday, you shouldn't worry about this because we can help you then on your first search. There'll be someone that would be glad to help you do these things on your first search, and you can learn them. Or we can privately and do that.
That would be great. When we go out hiking, I've been using it as I can, but I've had a couple hiccups, so.
That's good. We all have those hiccups. That's how we learn, really. Okay. Okay, good.
I even have hiccups on mine these days.
Yeah, Peg's GPS has been freezing up randomly.
Yeah, at least 3 times.
So that is actually what happened to me just last Sunday when we went for the first time up Bear Mountain, of all places. I had my map just in case, but it wouldn't unlock. No matter what I did, we had to actually take the batteries out to make it restart, and just had lots of problems that whole day. But since then, it's been fine. So I don't know what the deal is. Maybe there's an update or something.
You're in Oregon 700, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I was having trouble on my 700. My 650 that I have never has done this, but the 700 has done it 3 or 4 times. I just updated to the latest software, and it did it that next day on a search. So you're right. You have to when that happens, you take the battery out, you turn it back on, and then if you're tracking, you have to absolutely make sure your tracks have been restarted.
Yeah, it didn't restart the tracks right away, and I was like, oh man, we lost all of our tracks. But then, like maybe 20 minutes later, they all of a sudden appeared, which I thought was strange, but at least they ended up being there. Okay,
good. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's a glitch in the 700s, I guess, that causes this to happen. Tim had suggested, and I haven't done it yet, that I go through a factory reset on the Oregon 700, but I haven't done it yet because we've been too busy with searches and I didn't want to screw it up, but I will get to that someday.
So, you know, like you said, it will freeze up, but taking the batteries out and restarting can be inconvenient in the middle of a search, but that's the only way really to get it turned until Garmin fixes that glitch, or we find out what it is. Yeah. Okay, Stephen, so thanks for asking that question. And again, anyone pop in at any time with questions. This is for you, okay? Okay, going now. So repeating again, when you either hit mark waypoint or use the hotkey, you'll get this screen. There's 2 important parameters on this screen. You want to name it. You want to name the waypoint you're saving so you can find it later. Name it with a logical point so you will remember that. And then you need to enter your coordinates here. Now you enter coordinates if Deputy Barton says, here's the coordinates of the subject. If you're at the subject or you're at the clue, you name it, but you don't need to change this. Because this, when you hit mark waypoint, these are the coordinates where you are standing with your GPS. So you would only change this if you need to input coordinates to go to a subject or go to a helicopter landing zone, or you want to enter coordinates for something you want to go to. We're marking a waypoint for you're standing right over the subject or the clue or where you're leaving the trail. These are the coordinates of where your GPS is at that moment in time. And you don't need to change these. Should you need to change them? Deputy Barton says, here's the coordinates. He may have given those to you in decimal degrees, and then you would have gone to format and change your format to decimal degrees, and you'd be entering in decimal degrees. In this case, we're entering the formats in UTM. So you tap this. This, I have 2 screens because I've already changed the name up here in my first process. Now I tap this to change the coordinates, and this screen comes up, and Stephen, this is where you'd see orange cursor, probably over here. The orange cursor would start here. And I've made a mistake where, you know, I scrolled over like with my arrow. This arrow scrolls 1 tap, 2 tap, 3 tap. I've made a mistake where I've got my coordinates in, and then I found out that my subject is somewhere in Africa. And it's because my zone, I made a mistake and I put in zone 36 or 18 or something like that. But you'll rapidly find that when you look, as we'll show you next, when you check your coordinates. So usually you tap over, no change, no change, no change, no change, because the 0 is usually all the time. And tap over, what you can actually start, what I actually do is actually I type 0, then I type 4. I just enter my coordinates one at a time. Tap, 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 tap. It'll go down here, enter my coordinates. And then when I'm done entering the coordinates, I double check them. And then I triple check them, because one number off can really screw you up. And then once I've double checked them and triple checked them, I tap this and they're saved.
And this is a good reason. One of the things we'll do during the field training, and we always do it on searches, you should always have a pad of paper and a pen or pencil in your pocket on your person. When you are about to be given coordinates, or you hear the coordinates are on their way, get your pad out, be prepared to write them down. You do not try and enter them as they're being read to you, because then you have no reference to verify if you in fact wrote them down correct, if you actually entered them correctly or not. So that's critical. I highly recommend you have that pad of a small pad of paper and a pen in your pocket. You know, before you sign in, before you do anything, because you never know when you'll start getting information.
Because I learn by stories and experience. I'll give you a story from, again, Red Rock State Park, where we found the deceased subject. When Ranger, the helicopter, was saying, I'll hover over the subject, probable subject, and get your coordinates, right away I got out my pad.
Exactly. Yep.
Right away I got out my tablet
Yep.
and my pencil, and I stopped. And I was waiting to get those coordinates from Ranger. Once Ranger said they had the coordinates, they, I heard base, I read a copy, I wrote those down on my pad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I transfer them from my pad to my GPS.
Right.
And you've got a permanent location, you've got a permanent rendering of the coordinates for when you make mistakes on your GPS. You go back and double check against your pad. Okay, so after, again, repetition is the key to learning. I've changed the name to something that makes sense and that I'll remember. And then I've changed the coordinates of some place where I want to go to. I saved them twice. So I go through this, save it, change my coordinates, and save it. Two actions when I'm saving or marking a waypoint. This is what I would see when I'm done. So Al gave me the subject location. These are the coordinates. Then I look at the coordinates on my map, and I see subject location is on this trail. So I've had success. I see my name on the map. Our standard procedure is that everyone in a team saves the subject's coordinates. If you're doing an evidence find, it may only be 1 or 2 people that are with the evidence that save the coordinates. But when you're leaving base to go to a subject, everyone on the team enters the coordinates, because you can never tell when you're a team of 4 is going to be separated into 2, for example. You'll have a navigator on a team, but I find the best practices is while the navigator is primarily responsible for getting you to the subject, it's always nice to have a double check. Coordinates and navigation is easy to make mistakes on. You have a lead navigator, but it's also nice to have someone checking. Now, how do we check before we embark on a mission? So checking coordinates within the team before embarking on a mission. There's an easy way to check, and we need to do this every single time. And the way we do that is, whereas, if you have marked waypoint, you entered the waypoint here. This waypoint manager is how you manage every single waypoint on your GPS. Up here is track manager. That's how you manage and see every track that's on your GPS. Waypoint manager, how you manage and see every waypoint that's on your GPS. So, let's say we have a team of Peg, Rich, and Tim. And we've all entered our coordinates, and we say, okay, before we go out, let's check them. And Rich says, okay, I go to Waypoint Manager, I find the waypoint that I entered, subject location. And it says it's the subject 1 mile away on a 65-degree heading. Okay, Kern says, yep, I have subject as 0.99 miles away, 65-degree heading. Tim says, no way, you guys. I have it 0.76 miles away at a 60-degree heading. You guys must have entered it wrong. Okay, but usually the two that are right overweighs the one that has a different coordinate. So you go back and you check the coordinates that you wrote down, and you find out that indeed Tim entered one wrong number. So these are the coordinates that Rich entered. These are the coordinates that Peg Kern entered. These are the coordinates that Tim entered. Somehow, my fat fingers entered a 5 instead of a 9. This is how I found that. Sounds like there's a new participant. Just a minute. Yeah, Jennifer. Yeah. You're letting Jennifer back in.
Okay.
Lost my internet, but it came back.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back. So Jennifer, I was just talking about the, I'm sorry. There we go. I was talking about how to check coordinates. Did you hear any of that, Jennifer?
I heard the part about the UTM when we were at the Waypoint and all of that, but you can move on because I've been playing around with it and we can catch up. I don't want to take other people's time.
Well, what I wanted to say is this is very important about when you're leaving base, the team members always enter the coordinates of the subject. So you've all gone from your paper to the GPS. Before you leave base, you check them. I gave the example of here's Rich's GPS and Peg's GPS and mine. And Rich reads off the subject is 1 mile away, 65 degrees. Peg Kern is 0.99 miles away, 65 degrees. That's the same. You know, don't worry about little differences like that. But Tim says, no way, the subject is 0.76 miles away at 60 degrees. So obviously this is an outlier. And usually the two that are agree with each other are right. So you go back and you check actually the numbers that of the subject, and you find out that Tim put in one wrong number. And this is, remember this is in meters. So this is 2 meters. This is the ones. This is the 10, so it's 10 meters. This is the hundreds. So I entered 500 meters rather than 900 meters. So those are 400 meters apart. 1,200 feet apart, that's a quarter mile. That one number put me a quarter mile off, which you can kind of see. This is like 1 mile, this is 0.75 miles, that's that quarter mile difference. So that's something that we do every time. We check ourselves, and then we find one of us is wrong. We go back and look at the numbers we wrote down and find out who had made the error, then I would correct my GPS. And Jennifer, I was saying we do this every time because, for example, in a team of 4, you may be split up into a team of 2 to get to a subject different ways. And so we want everyone to have the coordinates of the subject. When you're marking a waypoint like of a evidence or subject found, then it's okay if only one person does that.
Or 2, ideally, yeah.
Or 2, ideally, yes, to make sure that you've got the coordinate, an accurate coordinate. But when we're leaving to go to the subject, everyone needs to enter the subject coordinates and you check. I think
the other quick comment on the bearing that you see there, the 65 degrees versus 60 degrees. If it's off 1 degree or so, that's insignificant. But we've had multiple times where it's been off 10 or 11 degrees. And so my first question is your GPS set for magnetic north or true north? And typically if it's 10 degrees off, that's probably what's going on rather than having entered, or it could be they entered the numbers incorrectly. But that's a clue. 10 or 11 degrees means check the magnetic versus true north.
Yep. Any other questions on this? Okay. When you're navigating to coordinates, for example, you would navigate to where the subject's coordinates are. In this case, this is an example of navigating to Gardner Trailhead. So to navigate, you say where to, where do you want to go? The GPS says, where should I take you? You click on this, you come up, you can navigate to waypoints. You could navigate via tracks, but this is,
No, don't do that.
don't do that. It's confusing.
Don't do that.
Take you back along the track.
Yeah.
You could navigate to coordinates or points of interest or addresses, intersections. This really is the only one part of this that we use.
Tim,
Yep.
if I could interrupt for a minute, could you go back to the prior screen?
Yes.
What I recommend doing here, which is a little bit more consistent and straightforward, we ask everyone after they enter their coordinates to go to Waypoint Manager to find, to verify the coordinates. I recommend using that. There's two steps that you would do to then do the go to that location rather than going back to the where to. What you do is when you're sitting on the subject location like you are, there's an option at the bottom that says View Map. You click on View Map, and then it gives you an option for Go. That way you are on the coordinates that you have just entered and just verified, and now you want to go to those coordinates. It's actually a more direct methodology to get there.
Yeah, so in that case, you tap on subject location.
Tap on that, and
It
then
goes to
View
the map.
Map.
And then you tap Go.
Yes. So again, there's two different ways to do it, but I recommend this because you're already on the Waypoint Manager, you're already seeing this. One of the difficulties as you use your GPS more and more, as Tim has done here, the list of waypoints becomes extensive. And he was showing you a list where you would have to have put in the name by searching by the name to find the waypoint. And there are settings that we can go through with you where you tell it to show you the coordinates based on what is nearest to you. And that's often an easier way to find them. But again, where we're already verifying the coordinates here, it's actually, in my opinion, a very simple and less error-prone way to make sure that that is the set of coordinates that you are going to go to.
Yeah, I think the future version of this, Peg, I'll get some screenshots.
I think, yeah, exactly, yeah. I actually have them on a different document, but we don't need to, if we have to at the end, I can show that.
Okay. So Peg listed one way of navigating to. This is another way, tapping on where to. This might be used when you've exited and you've done something else with the GPS and you need to go back to the subject's coordinates, for example.
Yep.
Tap where to, come up with waypoints. You'll come to this screen. You can actually tap the hamburger menu here. You can enter a name for this. You can, you go up here and you actually enter the name where you want. It could be subject location. It could be the trailhead. It'll pop up with trailhead. Yep, and go ahead.
Yeah, and I say that you only see, this confuses a lot of people in my experience. You only see this screen with the search name based upon how you have a setting down using that hamburger menu as to whether you're sorting nearest or sorting alphabetically. Tim has his set to sort alphabetically. That's why he is being prompted for a name. Mm-hmm. If you are set to sort by nearest, then you do not get that screen, and you would get to the screen on the right that would list the waypoints in proximity to your current location, not alphabetically. So that screen is variable depending upon other settings.
In this case, I knew I wanted to search for alphabetically for the Gardner Trailhead, something that I knew the name of.
Yep.
I type it in and tap here, and it comes up Gardner Trailhead. And then, then to navigate to Gardner Trailhead, I could tap this, and then we'll go to the map with the Go button at the bottom, like Peg was saying. Tap the Go, and it'll make a line between you and Gardner Trailhead. Which we're going to talk about now. How to visualize the direction route to the subject. Two ways, and again, this is personal preference, how you like to navigate. You can see the navigation on your map, or you can see the navigation via your compass, which is the next slide. So if I go to, I can tap with map. Let me say tap map. Actually, here's the screen, Peg, that you were talking about.
Exactly.
So if I were to tap Gardner Trailhead, I'm going to go back a screen. If I tap this, I would come to this screen. You see Gardner Trailhead at the top. If I want to go to that, I tap go. When I tap go, the GPS draws a line from where you're at to Gardner Trailhead. And then you can see in special topography of a map, let's see, do I go to the left? Do I go to the right? Do I go north? Do I go east, west? This tells you that in this case, Gardner Trailhead is, west of my current location. I can also determine that by going to my compass. And when you are navigating, when you see this purple line, that means your GPS is navigating. When you're navigating, you see that the direction of Gardner Trailhead is a bearing of 266. And the bearing remembers where I want to be. That's how I remember it. Bearing versus heading. Heading is what your GPS happens to be heading at or pointing at that time, or the direction you're traveling. Bearing is where I want to be, where I need to head to, where I need to navigate to, where I want to be. So this is actually, you can see east is actually 270 right here, right there. This is a bearing of 266. That makes sense. It's 0.85, the Gardner Trail is 0.85 miles away. This is my current location. And I can see on the GPS, the green arrow is the direction toward the subject or what I want to navigate to. Now, this is the compass when I'm not navigating. There's no bearing. There's no place I want to be. There's no distance because I'm not navigating to anything. So that can be confusing too. When you go into a compass and you see this and this, that means your compass is navigating. Your GPS is navigating you to where you told it to. When you don't have that, that means you're not in navigation mode. Okay, any question on marking a waypoint, entering a coordinate, going to the coordinate, navigating with map or compass? Any questions or any additions anyone wants to make?
One additional comment, the fields, the data fields that you're seeing at the top of the screen, the bearing, heading, distance, location, we will be working on those during the field exercise. We've actually, I'll say, improved upon the fields that we choose to put up there. And in that setup guide, it makes a slightly different recommendation for some of those fields. For example, I personally find that heading, I don't really need that. I don't care how I'm going now, how do I need to go, which is the bearing. The map screen itself to the left also has an option to view 4 fields, which this screenshot doesn't show those, but we have options and we will be working with those during the field training.
Yeah, in this case, Peg would say a screen like this could be on top of your map page right here.
Yep, and you can show it or hide it, and we'll go over that when we're out in the field.
Okay, tracking. Tracking is also another critical function of your GPS. Tracking is crucial for particularly large ICT countywide searches or evidence searches or grid searches. We used to have that on routine searches, deputies might ask for a track. We find that when it's a routine search, you go up to and get a person off Bell Rock, or you go up and get a person off Bell Mountain. I don't think that, in my experience, the deputies have not been asking for those tracks. But when we're covering an area to look for a person, a recovery, evidence, we're looking for a person that, we know they're out there, and you may have 50 people looking in multiple areas. Saving your track as to where you have searched is critical. this is probably one of the most important things, if not the most important thing in addition to everything else, when you're on searches and you're part of a coordinated function of a team, and ICT or the deputy needs to know, where have you been? What area have you cleared? What area have you shown that the person with the evidence is not there? And they will collect the tracks from you at the end of a search, or if you have 2 different areas during the day, twice during the day, they will analyze all those tracks and say, okay, we've covered quadrant 8 quite well, but look, here's an open area in quadrant 9 where no one's been. We need to send someone there tomorrow. So this is probably one of the most critical functions on a large multi-unit search.
And Tim, I would recommend that we don't even differentiate whether they may or may not be needed. Always, always, always clear your tracks when you start and run your tracks, and then we'll talk about saving them at the end. But there are cases where it starts out, maybe, as Tim said, it's a search, it's a rescue up on Bell Rock, so it's a kind of an easy one, but things are fluid and they change. So you want to be running your tracks always.
Yeah. When I made the comment about deputies have rarely asked for this, that's because we've had successful searches.
Right.
What if we went out and it was supposedly an easy search, and we got to where the subject was and they weren't there?
Right.
Okay, we would need that track to know, okay, where did you cover? Where do we need to go that hasn't been covered? Mm-hmm. So on each and every single search, we start our tracks, and actually the team leader on their leader card as their checklist say, clear your tracks, start your tracks.
And there's one other reason why you want to run it on every search. You can use your tracks to find your way back. You got off trail because that's where the coordinates were, and you need to remember the way that you got there. By running your tracks, you can follow those tracks back.
It's your get home safe feature.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay,
how do we do that? Well, we this current track. By the way, notice we've recently noticed that this little arrow turns green when you're actively tracking.
I think it was Alan that noticed this, right? Alan Kropnicki, right?
Yeah, some of us that don't notice the little things didn't notice that, but Alan said, hey, it's green and I'm tracking. Is that right, Alan?
That's correct.
Yeah.
If it's yellow, you're not tracking.
Yeah, that's been hugely valuable that you noticed that, because I had never noticed it before either.
Something as simple as that, we we should have noticed, but we didn't. So that's an easy way of looking at your screen. If you're green, you're good. Green,
I have a question. Is that current activity or current track on the 700?
Ah, okay. It's current activity.
Current activity.
Okay.
It's got the same symbol.
The same symbol, but different
words, yeah. And it also does turn green on the 700 series also.
Yep.
Both Tim and I now have both the 600 and the 700, so we're more able now to identify the differences.
Thank you.
Good question, Pat. Hey, Pat, I'm glad you got your GPS with you and you're following through. That's perfect. Good deal. Okay, so current track or current activity, tap this, and you see this screen. Okay, this screen is basically 4 menus at the top. These little icons, you tap those, and they'll take you into different features. This is the trash can. This computer floppy disk is where you save. It makes sense. Floppy disk, I want to save it. And this is where you start a track or you stop a track. So usually, after you go and the team leader would say, everyone clear your tracks. You go into your track and you tap the trash can. I'm clearing it. I'm throwing away what's in there. I want to start new. Now you may want to, depending on what this is, maybe it's, a hike you made to a special site yesterday. You should have saved that yesterday, but if you didn't and you want that, save it and you'll be able to call in a name here, or at least you'll have the day and the time. If you want this track, save it and then clear it, because you need to start fresh with every search. Tap this, you'll see the numbers start counting down, 1, 2, 3, and that's how you know that you're actively tracking. In this case, I tracked for 5 minutes and 23 seconds. I went 0.12 of a mile. This is just to show you what it looks like when you're tracking and when it's cleared and when you're starting. Now, when you start tracking, you can actually see yourself. See, this is your location, that triangle is you. And in this case, I'm laying down my track as yellow. I'm laying down my GPS breadcrumbs as a yellow line. This is very useful because you can see where you've been, and you can also follow that back. Like Peg was saying, this is your get back safe trail. This is how you get back safe if you to get back to base or to retrace your tracks. We can show you on Wednesday also, if you tap in here, that's how you actually change the color of your track. Say, I can't see yellow very well, I want them red, or I can't see red very well, I want them blue. That's this is how you would do that up here.
And you'll notice right on that screen, on the left-hand picture, the current track symbol is orange, but on the right one, it's that green already, which shows you are tracking again. Just another confirmation of that.
Yeah, so
symbol.
Peg, we can call this the Allen green.
Yes, Allen green. Yep, I like it.
This
And I will say, from my experience, this has happened to me multiple times. I clear my track. I then start my track. I see it go, as Tim said, 1 second, 2 seconds, and then I go ahead and get out. For some reason, it stopped tracking, and I don't know if I accidentally brushed over the pause key or what happened. So I normally watch it for at least 5 or 6 seconds. When I back up using that X in the bottom left-hand corner, I verify that it is still green on my main menu to know that I am still tracking, because it has happened to me on searches. And I tell you, it's really embarrassing when I have to say at the end, oh crap, I don't have tracks, or I find out part way.
Yeah, this is Peg Kern, our GPS tracker. Oh, you
Yeah,
must
exactly. And she screws up. Yep. So, and it's happened. There was one search down at Bumblebee, I think, where it happened to 3 or 4 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all, kind of embarrassing.
Kinda, yeah.
Kind of, sort of. We all make mistakes, and we all hopefully learn from them.
That's right. So, what's the next screen here? Okay. So we should talk about how we actually save tracks. So, when you're on an ICT search and they say save your tracks, turn them in at the end. There's a couple ways of doing that. What we generally recommend is, like VTech will tell you, just turn it off, right? And when you turn it off, it'll actually save your track. What I prefer to do is go in and actually stop it, okay? Then I have more control. You don't want to save it. If you save it, it does save it to your GPS, but Incident Command has to look in a different place for it. And it takes them a couple of minutes. Their software Incident Command is set to take whatever's in your current memory, which is the current track, which is these miles, that time, and this track. Once you have your tracks downloaded by the deputy or Incident Command, or after you're home and you've mailed them to the deputy or to Peg, and if you want to save that track, this is where you would save it. Tap the computer floppy disk. This is what you would see. And in this case, okay, I have a track of 5 minutes and 25 seconds of this distance with this many track points. All the other stats, I click save. It'll save it to my GPS with either this name, this date and time, or a name which I could click up here and save.
And Tim, I will say, and I'm going to try and hold up, cancel. I'm going to try and hold up my screen to see. On the 700 series, when you save the track, you hit the, oh crap, it keeps on, let's see, turn.
If you can't see, Peg, you might
Hang
want.
on, I'm about to do it here, I think. Oh, you won't be able to see it because you're not sharing, right? So on the 700 series, when you click that little floppy disk on the right side to say save the track, it actually gives you another screen that shows you the more data, and it has a resume down at the bottom or another little floppy disk on the bottom right-hand corner. You need to hit that bottom right-hand corner again, that floppy disk a second time to save the track. So there's one more step on the 700s.
It's always the floppy disk, right?
It's always floppy disk. So it takes 2 floppy disks on the 700. The first one from the current track on the screen that you're showing here,
Okay.
that floppy. The next screen, you don't get the save track screen next. You get another screen, or you get that, but with a little different bottom. Instead of cancel and save, it's got a trash can on the bottom left, a resume in the middle, and a floppy on the right. And you hit the floppy, and then you get the save.
Do you have that screenshot in the screenshots that you have?
I have that in that PowerPoint I sent you for the screenshots, yes.
We'll show that. We're
I'll
almost
show
done.
that later. Yep. I specifically put it in, figuring it's different on the 700s.
And the only reason we know that is because we've been comparing the 600s and the 700s and finding these little differences.
Yep.
Okay, so just to repeat, at the beginning of a search, the team leader would say, have you cleared your tracks? You go into here, tap that, and you would either have a screen like this with numbers here, which means that was your previous track. It could be one you want to save because of personal reasons, and you went to a special site yesterday. Oops, I better save that. This is how you'd save it. Click there, and you can just leave this date or name it. I find it best just to leave the date and time because you can always go back later. So you save it, and then you clear it with the trash can, and then you're going to have 0, 0. And then you start your tracks by tapping that. It starts counting 1, 2, 3, you're tracking, and then you exit with that X, and then you verify, yep, I'm tracking because this yellow turned to green. Okay.
So Tim, I have a quick question. When I delete it to clear the track, it automatically starts up again. Is there a way to stop it from doing that?
Yeah, so what you have set, Jennifer, is auto start. And
Okay.
you can have set to auto start, which means it starts again every time you clear it. Let's see what Pegsy was on this, but generally some people recommend to leave them on auto start because then we don't have to remember how to do it. The downside with auto start is when you turn on your GPS at home to say, are my batteries good? Yep. Is it working? Yep. Then it starts tracking you from home.
Right.
When you get to base, you've got this long line from your home to base. ICT can deal with that, but they prefer not to. You have to clean them up later.
But if we're clearing at base, that should clear that out, right?
Right.
Yes.
Clearing at base. That's why, clear your tracks every time. It should clear that out. And so if you're following, good procedures, clearing your tracks, it would clear that auto start out. I like to have more control, and so I've turned auto start off.
Right.
Downside
You
of that-
turn that off.
Okay, so let me explain. There's a setting. It's on this GPS setup guide. It is documented in here about those different settings. They're under setup. They're under the tracks. It's just called tracks. But you'll also notice on every one of the screens. So looking at this current track screen, our favorite little hamburger menu down at the bottom. If you click on that, that is essentially a way to get to a shortcut to get to the setup settings. And you'll see under there, so if you click on that, on the hamburger, there's setup activities on the 700 or setup tracks on the 600s. And there you will see auto pause. Auto pause should always be off. Auto start is what Jennifer asked about and what you can have as a personal preference. Auto start off means you have to start it yourself. Auto start on means that every time you turn on your GPS or clear it, it starts tracking.
I don't want that. Okay, thank you.
Yep. But so pretty much all of the menus, through setup, you can get to all the different settings that we have in that guide. But it's important to recognize that no matter what screen you're on the GPS, you should always take a quick look at that little hamburger menu to see what options you have. And for most of them, the setup options are on the screen that they apply to. So if it's a compass setting, like for your heading, is it magnetic or true? When you're on the compass page, the hamburger menu would let you change those settings. When you're on the tracks page, it lets you set your track options. When you're on the, so anyway, you get the idea. It lets you change without going back to setup.
Right.
I think we recommend that you leave auto start on. That's
So you're more comfortable.
the
Yep.
easiest fail-safe mechanism to know, okay, my tracks will always start when I turn my GPS on. Yes, and as a team, you should know, how are your tracks cleared? That should be fine for you. Peg was talking about the auto pause, that should always be off. What auto pause is let's say, okay, you're hiking, you've gone 2 miles, you decide to stop for a rest, and you sit down for a snack and water for 15 minutes. When the GPS sees you're not moving, it actually stops tracking. So you say battery. And then when you start moving again, okay, it starts tracking again.
Theoretically.
It's not as smart as we would like it to be, and sometimes it doesn't auto start again. There's been a few of our members that have said, my tracks stopped here. I don't have tracks. I don't have tracks for the first mile. It's because their auto pause turned their GPS off when they're resting or stopped for a while, and it didn't come back on. So we always have auto pause off. Okay, so we've been through this GPS basic course. This is the GPS competence checklist that came from probably one of the only Arizona-specific publications for search and rescue from March. And we've been through all of this, adjusting our settings, our distance units, bearing display. That's a lot of this is the 10-page, GPS basic setup that Peg has prepared. These are all the requirements for a search and rescuer in Arizona. Be familiar with the GPS menu pages, and you can become familiar just with playing with it. Go touch it, tap the hamburger menu, like Peg says, see what it can do. You need to be able to assess the satellite page for position condition. How accurate are you? Are you 200 meters accuracy, or are you 3 meters accuracy? Need to be able to change coordinate formats. You need to be able to do it so easily it comes as second nature to you. You need to understand, when am I going to get decimal coordinates, decimal degrees? When will I get decimal minutes? When will I get UTM? How do I convert one to the other? Be able to change map datums. And you've seen that like NAD 83 and WS 84 are pretty much very similar. But if you get an NAD 27 coordinate, where you've got the wrong datum, you can really be off, way off, like hundreds of meters off. You need to be able to take coordinates in one format datum, enter them, save them, convert the coordinates to another, and then often convert back when you're done with, you've gone to the helicopter coordinates. Now you've found the subject or the evidence. You need to convert them back to UTM to read them to the deputy, for example. You learn how to mark a waypoint, either a waypoint from your current position where you're leaving the trail, or enter a new waypoint from coordinates provided. You learn how to edit waypoint information, change the name from 004 to subject location, for example. 10 and 11, we're actually going to, again, our field training will practice this with you extensively. Set up a go-to to a waypoint. Learn how to use tracking and view. Track your breadcrumbs so you can find your way back. Save a track log with a name. clear the track log before starting an assignment. And then, of course, under GPS competence checklist for Arizona Search and Rescue, you need to be able to have the cables to upload and download GPS information to a computer or mail those tracks to a deputy or ICT or a SAR member. So this course is the lecture part of how to do all this. The field part of this is all going to be next Wednesday. So just in concluding, GPS is essential technology. We could not do our job well without it. I remember listening to Al Cornell talk about when he started. Al started 25 years ago, and he said we didn't have GPSs. We didn't have cell phone coordinates. We had to actually know the trails, and we had to search the trails. Can you imagine how hard our job would be today, if we didn't have GPSs? So it is essential, but it requires stepwise learning, baby steps, going forward, master something, then go forward and master something else, baby steps. It requires repetition to become second nature. Practice, patience, practice, patience. That's how you learn.